Guten Abend, Leute. Welcome, Damen und Herren, zu die Nachrichten. Good evening, people. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the news. Das, was eines Menschen ist nicht wie auf der Hinfeld, sondern wie viel wieder aufsteht. The measure of a man is not how much he falls, but how much he gets back up. And on that note, we'll start tonight's program. So I see that everyone is basking in what is perceived to be MP Peter David's downfall or political end. There are a lot of people saying hooray, and they may have varying, sometimes very different reasons for saying so. But I believe in redemption. And I believe that is never over, as they always say, until the fat lady sings. And I think the fat lady has not sung yet. In the annals of politics, things are very uncertain, especially when you're dealing with people who are not proficient at the trade. So to be anxious and to rush to judgment and to pile on Mr. David might be just premature. And I don't believe in piling on or basking in someone's demise, whether it be political or otherwise. Because the fate of life is so unpredictable, no one knows what tomorrow may bring for them. I have seen people who have chastised other people, and in the future, they end up doing the same thing. I've seen people who have hoorayed after someone's demise, and then life is a lifetime. We have to remember that. The very person that they smiled at, the very person that they mocked, gotta come back and overtook them. That is how interesting life can be. So the bottom line is, I don't glory in anyone's downfall, even my ups. Now, don't get me wrong or misinterpret what I'm saying. That does not mean that you do not do what you have to do to neutralize them. In this life, no matter how bad things seems, no matter how dismal it is, if you have a plan, you more than likely can make a comeback, or you can escape your current situation. So, for those who are basking in Peter David's so-called political demise, my friends, I should warn you, it may be premature. And the worst I saw though was Willie Joseph on his piece. He did. I mean, he got all philosophical on Peter's demise. You know what I'm saying? And hey, I don't know, there's a lot that may have transpired. So I don't know, but he may have whatever reasons he have. But that was that was just a pile on. I was like, wait. This is hard to digest. You know what I'm saying? But hey, what do I know? And then, of course, you had the NDC hitter just going after him. He was going in, He was in another program with another gentleman, and then another. I think it was a program with three of them, and boy, oh boy, they was hitting Peter under the belt. And I must say, not so much the gentleman who was hosting the program. Let me clarify that. But the other two, boy, oh boy, they was hitting Peter some punches. And let me clarify that also. That is verbal political punches. But I can understand, the gentleman that I made the joke about. I can understand why he's doing what he's doing and the way he is. And I think in some respects, I don't think he understands the political climate and the political class struggles, so to speak, in Grenada. Just to borrow an expression from the socialist Marxists. And I must say, in some respects, in terms of dialectical analysis of society, I think Marx and them was right. In terms of the logical scientific approach to analyzing society, I think they were right in many respects. But as to the solutions they put forward, I think that's where they went wrong. So the bottom line is this: it would be politically unwise or naive to just outright dismiss a Peter David. Now, you got to look at the man's history. At least he was able to survive all these transitions. So that in itself shows an ability to fight. I mean, and he has taken a lot. I mean, you remember when he was in NDC. I mean, somebody was supposedly his friend currently. I mean, he came after him. And he dealt with that. That's a lot of pressure. Constantly be mistrusted. To constantly have to prove yourself. But he did it. And then he transitioned into the NNP. And it was viable. Relatively viable. For him. And for the party. He would already have a trust of a certain sector of the population. They would trust him more than they would trust these current youthful adventurers. Because these youthful adventurers have already proven, and they are perceived in some respects, as avaricious. Nobody would want them to continue to hold the reins of the kitty. No one will want them to continue to hold the reins of the cookie jar. That cookie jar would be emptied. There will be crumbs left in it. And don't take my word for it, time will tell. I want you to compare the beginning of the administration. And let's look at the financial health of the country currently, and time will tell. We'll see what the financial health of the country will be at the end of their administration. At the end of their 4 years. Remember, they came in and they were happy to announce that the country was in a very healthy financial state. There was loads of money in the treasury. So much so, we know what they did with the money, right? As to how wise that was, unwise it was, is a whole different story. But we will see. And then we will know. So the entrepreneurial class that looks to government for certain things to be implemented to assist them in doing their business, who do you think they're going to trust? You think they're going to trust these youthful, adventurous, avaricious people? Or you think they're going to trust a Peter David? If they had a choice, who do you think they're going to trust? Or he already has some association, if you know what I mean, with them. And as much as you may want to disregard and say, that's the greatest change, essentially in any society, some things remain the same. So I guess I shouldn't take too seriously what these sensationalist podcasters say. They're youthful and many of things they don't understand. So I don't take it too serious. I respect certain things they say and certain things they do, but certain things is mostly emotionally based and sensational. So I don't believe that they are the real power brokers, or I question how much influence they have in terms of holding the party together, in terms of doctrinal defense of the party, which they're still trying to figure out. I mean, what is the doctrine of the NDC party currently? Really, what is it? What is the doctrine? Transformation, but what have you transformed? What have you actually transformed in the society? Or started to transform? What do we see is morphing into anything different? Because if something is changing and something is being transformed, you will see some sort of early signs that things are are morphing into something else. But what is morphing into anything else that has not been in the society? And then there's the question of one thing you could say, again, something that I believe that works in Peter's favor and is politically, it's a strength. He has never been associated with any underhand dealing in terms of financial stuff. His name has never been associated with that, which is something that cannot be said for other politicians. Nobody has ever accused Peter of profiteering from politics. Maybe he doesn't need it. So They may not trust his politics. They may think that he's extremely ambitious. And I don't know. I mean, is ambition a curse? Is ambition a bad thing? Some may say that he has ways and means of going about realizing his ambitions that are not the best approach. But I think every man has ambition. And if you're in politics, you should have ambition to lead the institution of which you're a part of. But I think, again, I think that the influence of the people around him is understated. Because in their drive for rewards, the people around him I'm talking about, in their drive for rewards, I think they would have also motivated him to do certain things or misrepresent certain things to him. And he may say, oh, yeah, that makes sense. Let me try that. So a lot of the things, as you can see, that is attributed to Peter was not done only by Peter. It's not like Peter worked in a vacuum in the NDC party. It's not like Peter worked in a vacuum in the NNP party. Not at all. Not by any stretch of the imagination. I believe the people around him wanted power as much as he may have wanted power, or they might have even wanted power more than he wanted power, but saw him as that representation, or saw him as the most ideal person to represent leadership. Because, I mean, none of them had any bit of the charisma that he had, comparably. Picture the other people around him who was around him having the charisma that he had, or being up for a leadership position. No, they couldn't do it. So they saw him as a ticket to their ambitions also. Nobody's talking about that. I believe that him not having the right team around him or the right advisors around him and people with much better strategic approach, I think that's what he failed. Because if he succeeded in his attempts at all the things that he did, if he succeeded, no one would be talking about him the way they're talking about him now. The fact is because he failed. And then, of course, his ops will capitalize on that and say, see, he failed, and see, he's vicious, or see, this is what he wanted to do, because he didn't succeed. If he succeeded in his attempts in the leadership in the NDC party, nobody would be talking about him this way. If he succeeded in his attempt in the NNP party, nobody would be talking about him this way. So I think failure and success, to a very large extent, sort of tarnishes the image of someone. And the whole association, again, go back to the whole PRG thing. Again, as I said, if he had the courage, and that is not easy, because these are strong relationships. These are intense relationships. So it's difficult to shake them. But if he was truly ambitious, really, really ambitious, and so self-centered as many would paint him to be, then he would have ditched those relationships. Because these are destructive relationships that has not helped him along the way. Has not added much to his political capital. I think much of his political capital has been built by him, not by his association with certain people. Because, it's obvious he left the NDC party, went to the NNP party, and still had that grassroots base and support. So that's a reflection of him, not the group to which he belongs. So, either party, you better protect your base. And you better protect your votes and protect your support in rural Grenada, so to speak. Because if Peter gets a foothold, and if there are disgruntled people in either party who sees opportunity with him, you guys are done. You guys are done. And there's already some sense of discontent. So let's see how that'll play out. And it's obvious, one thing people have to understand in politics is that you've got to take care of the people who took care of you. And again, I've spoken about that before, but you can't take everything for yourself. You can't do worse than the people before you did. And when they were in power, you were criticizing them for doing what you're doing. And you're doing worse. The PRG had that problem. The very excesses that they accused Gary of, they came in and they did 30 times worse. And they tried to justify it. And it's the same thing that's being done. The very things that some people accuse Keith Mitchell of doing. The nepotism, the trying to fill his coffers. The perception is clear. I don't know the reality, but the perception is that that is what is being done. And worse. And I think because they're not very skilled at what they do, that it's being exposed. So it's creating that perception. So if you lose the middle class, if you lose the working man, and if you lose that man at the bottom, you're done, which is essentially the base of NDC. Even the upper echelon of leadership has always been more of a sort of middle class, upper middle class leadership. So you would see that the entrepreneurial class in Grenada is more attracted to an NNP. They see an NNP as protecting their capital and their legacy much more than an NDC would. They see NDC as more radical. Even the emerging middle class would more trust an NNP to protect the capital, the emerging capital, than an NDC. A man thinks very differently when he starts having money than when he didn't have money. Also keep in mind that the person who voted for you 4 years ago is 4 years older now. Their mind would have changed dramatically in 4 years. So somebody who was 25 and then 4 years after they're 29, going on 30, has an entirely different mentality. So don't expect to woo them with the things that you wooed them 4 years ago. In that 4 years, the young lady that was sensational and probably voted for you may have had a kid that would utterly change her mentality. Or the young man would have had a kid in 4 years. And his mentality would have changed. So you can expect to lure him or her in with the things you did 4 years ago. And I see y'all talk about the age and he too old and he can't do nothing and he's 68 and all that kind of nonsense. Please. The man has longevity in his family. So if that man hit you guys with another 2 terms of politics, that's a hell of a lot of politics. That's 8 years. He still will be relatively young. Be 76. Now these days, that's relatively young. So another 2 terms of politics, and I think that's why you guys are already scared. I would hate to believe that you guys are so naive. After how effective you've seen this man has been in terms of maintenance of the MP of St. George. After seeing all of this, I would think that you would be more cautious and wiser. But I think it's a different strategy. Using the strategy, you're trying to discredit him even some more. You're trying to instill some sort of fear in the minds of potential people that may come over to his side and say stuff like, oh, you're too old and he can't relate to the youth. That's bullshit. Pure nonsense. I think you're saying that because you're scared. I would hate to believe that if you guys have just a little bit of experience, that you would not see the possibility of him being some sort of threat to either party. And even if you didn't think so, vigilance would require that you take that into consideration. So, I don't know. But then again, these are podcasters talking, so I can't take them too serious. If I had some sort of serious one-to-one discussions with, the upper echelon and the architecture, the human resource architecture of the party, and they told me that, then I would be disappointed. Whoever podcaster says that, I shouldn't take it too serious. Because I don't know how much coordination there is between that podcaster and the human architecture of the NDC party. How much of what he's saying is just what he's saying? Or is there some sort of coordinated connection, which I doubt. So let me not take what he says too seriously. But either way, if he's supposed to be working on behalf of his party, he's not doing them, he's not doing them justice by saying what he's saying. He's not. So the bottom line is this, that no one who have seen the history of politics all over the world, and even in Grenada, should take anyone for granted. Because if you do at your own peril. And on that note, I'm going to end it. Guten Nacht.